Hey y'all, hope everybody's doing well. So initially for this video, I had wanted to do a more ASMR kind of video, but that was not gonna happen. So I decided to just do a voiceover. Hopefully with this voiceover, it does a little bit better. So you will see that we don't have a sketch portion of this video because I initially did the sketch couple videos ago. It is posted, and somehow or another I'll link in the description if you want to see the drawing process of Lisa. So this is Lisa from Genshin Impact. Her birthday was recently the other day on June the 9th, and I went ahead and posted the drawing then, but I said I was going to wait for the video for today. It was a lot trying to cut down in time. So yeah, Lisa, we decided to try to attempt this again. The first time I drew Lisa, I was not really the happiest with it, but with each drawing, I'm continuing to grow and learn more about the drawing process. And I really, really like clouds. I've noticed a lot of my drawings that I initially end up doing the clouds. I may have that as like my default background for a lot of stuff, but I do like it. It is a lot of fun to bring in some different colors. I want to play with some more color variations with the sky as well, added in purples and the teals. I think the more that I practice it, the more comfortable I'll be with it. But you'll see in the beginning, I pointed to this little swatch I have at the top. I kind of went through some of the colors and chose some basic colors for skin, hair, background, eyes, and the clothes. The reason for this is because my screen itself, I have it turned down to like, say almost like 40% for the brightness so that it's not so blown out with the drawing process with being able to film it. I don't know if it is related to a camera setting or if I just need to get probably a different camera in order to film and have my opacity of my screen up higher, because it does make it difficult with filming to see some colors. And for this video, I did use natural light. So if you notice the lighting towards the end starts to change a little bit, it's just the sun moving around outside, you know, time changing and everything. But I did start out with a base color. The color I started out with, I felt like was a little bit too dark. And so I did lighten it up some. So if you don't know, Lisa is a character from the game of Genshin Impact. As we know, Hoyoverse has got some of the fabulous character designs. Um, and I have drawn Lisa before. That was a learning curve as well. I do have that video posted too. And it was, like I said, it was a learning curve. I've noticed a drastic change in my drawing style since. But everything is just improving. But Lisa is an electro character in the game. She is, I guess you could think of her more like a very stylish electro witch. She does like her reading her books, her potions, her research. But in one of her idle phases, she has a flower, purple flower or rose, should I say, that pops up and then it disappears. So my idea was, at first I thought I wanted her in a rose garden, but I'm like, oh, it's too much roses. So I kind of wanted this rose to somewhat be dissipating as well. I would love to redraw this pose and this character design again because I feel like I could do even better in the future as well. But I do take a lot of like going back and forth in between the eyes and the hair. A majority of the drawing session, whenever I was trying to cut it down, it seemed to be a lot of more eye rendering and hair rendering. I still is not my strong suit, but as I mentioned before, with each one, I'm continuing to learn. I hope everybody is doing well. And if you do play Genshin, do you use Lisa as a character? I know starting out in the game, you do get her in the beginning, and I did used to use her a lot. But now, as far as Electro, I don't really have an absolute favorite. I will say, on this current banner, Sethos is on there, and I did get Sethos finally. Oh, now I get to save all my Primogens for whoever's up next. But I think he may be my new favorite Electro character. I gotta work on leveling him up. But so far, I really like his concept and his design, and I do like the fact that he is a bow user. Uh, Bow users especially are very, very useful in the Genshin game. So you'll see that I do color pick quite a bit. I do add in, it's not really purple, although it does look purple on screen. As you saw, it's more towards like a red purple kind of a hue. It's on the cooler side of the spectrum, but I have been liking to add the purple into the shading sessions. I will say, whenever I went back and I looked at this drawing, I kind of made the neck a little bit darker than I was initially anticipating, but I think just with practice it will do better. Now the hair around the face I did like. I feel like we ourselves, as we look over our own pieces, our own artwork, we are our own worst art critics. But if y'all see anything that you're like, oh well, you probably could have done this differently or done that differently, let me know. I am still learning, and I try to share everything that I learn with y'all so that in the future you'll be able to make changes to your own drawings or even be able to do something completely different. I did use the Game Fashion Archive for looking at her outfit and the way everything laid. The hat is the weird part of her design, I feel like, because it's not really like it's like a floppy hat, like one of those big old beach hats, but it has these weird divots in it, and so it doesn't really do like a circular thing, but then I ended up making it more like a triangular pose because I really wanted her face and her eyes, like I kind of wanted her to be looking up under the hat. So just more practice. Each time I draw these characters, they'll improve, but it is a strange position of a hat. As you'll see, like I said, the colors I'm using is the ones that I've picked out prior to the drawing. And like I said, my reason for that is because whenever I'm drawing, on the camera, it looks bright, but actually in person, it is very, very dim. And once I learn how to, one of two things, once I learn the settings of how best to use on drawing with filming, it will do a lot better, but it may just be that eventually I need to save up some money and get me a different camera. If anybody has recommendations for cameras, let me know in the comments. That would be a great help. But yeah, so this banner we have got, let's see, I always butcher her name, Chloron, and then that's one that I got to set those from was on her banner because I was like, if I'm going to wish for a character, at least I'll already have the other one. Oh Lord, now my mind is blanking for a second. Let's see. I've got to pull up the game to remember who in the world was on the banner. But I'm trying to think of what else to discuss because now we're in the rendering phase. So now what I ended up doing prior was I took all my layers and merged them together and duplicated it. The only layer I did not merge with the drawing was the background itself. I kept the background on its own. Let's see. But yes, now we're in the rendering phase, so now we're drawing over the sketch and colors are coming together better. I really didn't want to use a multiply layer. My goal for this drawing was to try to use as much of the coloring and the shading and to create the gradients themselves, but eventually I do use the multiply and add layer, but then I do turn down the opacity. What I've noticed is a lot of the characters in Genshin and also in Honkai Star Rail, their eyebrows are covered up a lot, and so it looks a little odd whenever you do add eyebrows. Let's see here. All right, so oh yes, that is right. It is Al Hatham that's on the banner as well. So for this banner, we have Al Hatham, and then we have, like I said, I'm gonna butcher it. Chlorine, yeah, she's Electro as well. And then of course the 4 stars they have is Toma, Bennett, and then Sethos. And I got Sethos, so I was very pleased with that. And like I said, now I get to save up all my Primogens again for the next banner. I can't remember who they said would potentially be on the next one, but I'm really looking forward to it. Looking at Al Hatham on the banner really makes me kind of want to draw him. I drew him before, but it was more like a little ship piece that I did between Kaveh and Al Haytham. I have not drawn Bennett or Toma yet. Hmm. Who should I draw from Genshin next? I know that Venti has a birthday coming up. I've been practicing on drawing him more. And I got the pose down. I just got to figure out how exactly to do the hand. I don't know if I'm going to make that a draw with me video or if I'm just going to do that on my own and then do something in between. I think the next video I may end up posting will be from Honkai Star Rail. That's another Hoyoverse game as well. And currently those two are like my saving grace at the moment because I have not really been able to work. I previously had a foot injury that I had to have start major surgery for. So I have been out of work for quite a while. Needless to say, this has provided me an opportunity to be able to work on my drawing and rendering skills and figuring out how I like best to do things. So I will say, with this drawing and probably with future drawings, I will most likely be drawing the noses like this because it's not that I don't like the more anime style of nose. It just feels like it's missing something. I have not perfected that yet, and I do like the hints of a nose and hints of the Cupid's bow and stuff like that. So I think in future drawings, I'll end up having more of that as well. And also, I'm slowly learning how best to do the mouth. This is a kind of an odd angle, her looking up at a 3/4 angle, but it does eventually come together, I promise. It is all a work in progress for sure. I do apologize for any of the camera shaking. I tried to cut out as much as I could of the camera shaking, but it is attached to my desk and I don't have any easier way to attach it at the moment. And we gotta just work with what we have. I do like her eyes. They're very pretty green. And the more I experiment and try to play with things, what I would like to do in the future is be able to take that green and put it more into the eyelash color as well, so that it kind of pulls it together. Um, but yes, I do have issues with rendering and drawing the other eye. It's like one eye always looks so much better than the other, and you're like, how can I get this exactly the same? And it's like you don't really want to copy and paste it because no two eyes are honestly identical because we as humans, our symmetry is a little off. And then also sometimes I like to embrace the slight imperfections of drawings and it works. Everybody's got their own little style. So I wanted to add in some blue from try to bring in some of these blues and purples and somewhat of the hair colors, try to make it more dynamic versus just having a plain green. And then eventually what I end up doing later on is I add more purple to it because I want that flower to be highlighted and then I wanted it to have it to where the petals are kind of dissipating. Like I said, that just requires more practice, but it all will eventually come together. And once I get more comfortable with everything, I want to redraw her again. Like I said, my goal this year is to have all the Genshin characters drawn in time for their birthdays. If not post it like right on their birthday or get really close to it. And I would like to have videos for each one. It may not help a whole bunch of people, but I hope it helps a few or at least one person. As long as it helps one person out there, I'm pleased with that. And we can all enjoy the art journey as together and figure out what's best in drawings and how best to develop our own style. Uh, I honestly am kind of using these videos as a way to hold myself accountable if I set a time frame for posting on certain days or if I like the birthday thing I announced it. I think I started this in at the end of March, beginning of April. So I was kind of a couple months behind by the time I decided to try this out. But now that I am doing it, I would like to keep it up and to maintain a schedule. And like I said, it just kind of holds me accountable to be able to not drop a project. because I would be the world's worst. I will hyper focus on something so much, and then all of a sudden I'll lose interest, or I hit like that either a writer's block or a drawing block, and it just stops everything. And then eventually I'm like, well, why did I stop doing this? And then I pick it right back up, and the cycle repeats again. So I feel like if once I have a more stable schedule on how best to do everything, it will all do better. And then, of course, once I start back to officially working, then I'll have to just modify my drawing schedule and how best to draw stuff. And I feel like I would love to get a sketchbook, and probably do some like actual sketchbook pieces. It's been a long time since I actually had a sketchbook, and I have got all my drawings from art school. I was an art major for a while there. And then once I realized I couldn't do much with it at that point in time, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to get a real degree and do what I want to do, which not saying art is not a real degree. Especially people who go to art school and then they are able to do what they love for a job. But then, of course, it's one of those things too. Once you do something that you love for a job, then you're forced to do it, and then it makes other things not as enjoyable. It's like how I used to read books all the time. And then I went to nursing school, and in nursing school, you read a whole bunch. And then it just kind of deterred me from wanting to read. So now I just mainly read mangas, have the pictures and the good storylines. So you'll see me working on the hat. I have a couple variations of purple that I used, and then I went back to the color wheel, or it's not really the color wheel, it says the square one. But I went back to that and I chose the more cooler purple reds. And I did implement that on the top because I wanted it to be like if the light was hitting it, the material probably would have some kind of other undercolor to it. It wouldn't just be straight up a purple or a blue. Like colors have variations in it, and if you're able to use like different colors and put them in there, it does help it to break up the monotony of one color versus just having an array of stuff. But I do, like I say, I do kind of struggle with a hat a little bit. And then I should have, but I didn't. I should have went back and redid the flowers a little bit better, rendered them some more. But honestly, with rendering, finished date is what you determine it to be finished at, because technically at a certain point I could have just like called it quits and it would have been fine and been done. But the more that you look at something more, you're like, oh, well, I can add this part to it. I can add this part to it. Like, you can keep rendering something until it's like completely 100% flawless and it looks fabulous. But the question is, it comes into more so, are you going to spend even more time rendering on one piece whenever you could have been done earlier and worked on another piece, or even went and played some Genshin? So it's just one of those things that you render things to a certain extent where you feel like it's at a spot that you're happy with it. And it's just one of those other sayings that I feel like as well, like it's just, not to be too gruesome about it, but it's just like beating a dead horse, as they say. You can't just keep hitting on something and it's just not, there's not going to be too much of a change, too much drastic. And I think that's one of my issues too. I need to work on. I'm such a perfectionist with things, and I see this most smallest and minuscule of little dots or lines that I'm like, oh, I need to fix this, do this, and then it's something that people probably are not going to really notice until like I would point it out. That's like leaving some of the lines in your artwork. I did do that on this piece. Some of the line sketch from it is still in the piece as well. But it's just one of those things that you just learn, okay, this is the stopping point, or yes, this looks good for this go around. Next time I draw them, I will do a little bit differently, do something, some variations. So it's all just like a learning curve. So the under part of her hat has got this design, and I will say it gave me some issues whenever I sketched it. And I still had some issues in it whenever I was trying to draw it out, because I was like, this just does not seem right. And it probably isn't. It's the angle, honestly. I probably could have hidden more of the hat or had it more like a floppy hat, and we'll just have to do another trial run of this again in the future. Maybe next year what I'll do is take some of my pieces that are better rendered and closer to a style and like do redraws. I was halfway contemplating too doing some drawing sessions where I'm studying artworks of other artists as well. There's quite a few that have inspired me, and especially recently there's been a few that has inspired me greatly, and I would love to try to like do an interpretation of their piece, not copy it like identical to theirs, but to bring it to my style and then to learn how best they did this part of the drawing or that part of the drawing. If y'all would be interested in something like that, just let me know in the comments. I probably would still post it, but I just was wondering about that. Everybody else will be interested to know, like, to follow along some artists and figure out how they do things and how I could incorporate that into my works, or if I find out, oh, I definitely don't want to draw like this, and at least I've experienced it and we'll learn more about it. So with the hand, I should have done her fingers, like curled her other fingers under more, but I just did the pinky and holding the rose kind of loosely. Uh, but for the next piece, I don't know if I want her holding a flower or doing something else, or the hand. I do like incorporating a hand in the drawing. It feels more cohesive, to say the least. And also, as we know with AI, until it starts to improve better, people, the hands are a giveaway with stuff. I'm trying to incorporate a hand so they don't think some of these drawings are developed by AI, because that's not my thing at all. And it's kind of sad that we can't even, it's like we're making art because we like to make art, and then we put it out in the public for others to enjoy as well. So not only are we doing that, but then AI comes along and it's able to take your artwork and so-called learn from it. And I'm like, I didn't really make this piece for a computer machine to learn from it. I did it more so out of enjoyment and for other people, like humans, to learn how to draw, or they like a certain style and whatnot. So, but that's a whole another rant for another another video as well. So we end up moving on to the, I guess it's like I want to say it's metal piece on her outfit. I do like the way I rendered it this go around. I feel like each time with metal pieces on outfits, I'm getting slightly better at rendering. And then towards a certain spot, you'll notice I use the multiply. I think it's right at this part. Yeah, right at this part, I use a multiply layer because I was having issue in trying to get the right depth of a color that I wanted. But what I do is I use the multiply and I get the color that I want, and then I will go back over it with the normal layer and just pull from, like, color pick from it. And it does help whenever you have all the colors down and you're able to color pick, because having to go back and forth between the color wheel and drawing, it does take a lot of time. You don't realize how much time it does take, but it really does. So once you're able to get your base colors down and then start refining and rendering, it does help out. And then I do use the add layer to help me get some of that brightness and figure out the best hue of yellow. It's just the little things like that that does help out. I did at the end, it's not going to be visible here because I ended up stopping recording for a second and then came back to it and forgot to hit re-record again. But I do put an overlay layer on top of her, and I do it more in an orangey hue to bring more vibrance of color to the skin and the hair, because like I said, with having to draw on a lower opacity or lower brightness level, should I say, on the screen, it does make it a little bit harder to figure out, oh, well, this is actually a little bit paler than what I was expecting it to be. I did not want to really hyper focus on the design on her, was it a bodice piece? And so I just kind of made some spots here and there. I could have rendered this a little bit more, but I was getting kind of tired and towards the end of the day. And as you saw, my Apple Pencil is down to 20% right there. But yeah, we're getting closer to the end of this piece. But yes, let's see, what else can we talk about? If you're wishing on the banner, Are you wishing for Alhaitham or chlorine? Chloron. I'm sorry if I butcher her name because it's an unusual name for sure, but she is a pretty useful character, and the recent story that they put out on her was really, really interesting, to say the least, and never would have imagined that she had that rough of a backstory growing up. And even the other characters like, oh my gosh, that's not how a childhood is supposed to be like. And she's like, yeah, this is the way of my life was. And at 3 years old, I was fighting monsters on my own. And they're like, what? But let's see. And if you're wishing for the weapons, I wish you all the good luck on that, because I tried on the last banner to get Baiju's weapon. I was not successful, so all those wishes that were used, they just had to be used for the next big weapon that I decide that is best to get. Okay, so here's where I end up adding I wanted it to be flower petals, but I wanted it to kind of be in motion. Um, and I just did the selection tool, and I did the color fill on each one of them and used some more like a purple hue on it. And then I ended up doing a chromatic aberration and a Gaussian blur. I tried to do the motion blur, but I didn't really like how it feathered out. And I do end up adding an add layer over it and trying to brighten it up, make some definition with it. But things like that in the future, I would like to do more, and I would just have to practice it more, honestly. It's just one of those things that the more you practice it, the better you get at it. No, one thing I need to do. I do have a desktop tablet. Was it Huion? Huion. I cannot pronounce things right now. My brain is like defaulting at the moment. It's got a glitch going on. But I do have a drawing tablet for desktop. Maybe one of these days I'll open up the Clip Studio Paint and we'll do some drawings on it as well. It is definitely different going from one program to the other. I like Procreate because it is such a simple program to use, and it does offer so much convenience with drawing. And it's nice to be it on the iPad. I hope that this voiceover does better than my last one. Like I said, the last one, it was a little bit more quiet than what I was expecting. So hopefully this go around it'll be better. And yeah, just let me know in the comments, like I said before, and like I say, probably every video, if you prefer voiceovers or just straight up ASMR, or if you want ASMR plus voiceover plus some background music. So this video is just mainly voiceover with some music. But yes, it does take a while to figure out how best everything works and what works best for my videos and the content that I'm trying to put out. And I am trying to be more mindful whenever I film, how I hold the pencil in order to show more of the drawing, because I'm just so used to just drawing over everything and not thinking about others really watching it and seeing the drawing process. But I, for one, love seeing drawing process videos, and they're always very relaxing, and it's nice to figure out what the mindset is of the creator whenever they do things. And so this is where I actually add the purple to the eyes, because I was like, oh, I wanted some of the purple to reflect in the eye, because honestly, the flower petals, if they were reflective, they would have some highlight in the eyes. And then I kind of wanted to highlight the vision. I didn't know how best to execute this, but I wanted it to be bright as well because her vision would be activated. What I should have done, like I did in the last one with the vision with, who was it that I did? Ito. On his vision, I did the little flecks of glitter in it. Honestly, if I would have thought about it now, I could have, or thought about it then, I should have added flecks of the glitter in it. So I'm trying not to like overdo, which is hard. It is so hard. But yes, we're getting close towards the end. And I do mess with the hue and saturation a little bit. Like I said, that's not on the video itself. It will be on the time-lapse replay whenever I go through. You'll see some changes to it. Like this part of the flower is very, very blown out. It's not my intention for it to be blown out. Once again, that's just a camera issue, honestly. Yeah, going back and forth with that vision. It almost reminds me of a biohazard sign. Instead of the Electra does it, for a minute there, it reminded me of the biohazard. I spent, I think, more time on the hair and the eyes for this drawing than anything else. And I do take the liquify tool and I end up pushing her face a little bit more in. At one point I found out that it was just too wide, especially for the angle that I was going for. So here I'm actually using an add layer. And I do like how Hoyoverse has got the eyes and the pupils are a lot lighter than the rest of them. It's not so dark. It does bring see, here's the add layer. It does bring a different characteristic to the character. It kind of does lighten up the eyes some. It doesn't make it so heavy and dark. So if y'all have any Honkai Star Rail or Genshin characters that you would like me to draw in the future, which chances are I'm going to end up drawing so many of them, just let me know in the comments. And if you have any recommendations for future videos as far as like filming setup or voiceover setups, just leave me a comment. And I do read all comments and I try to make adjustments as I can. And yeah, so we'll eventually get to the time lapse, and once we're at the time lapse, I'll go ahead and say my byes then. Let's see. I'm trying to think now. I think I may end up drawing a Honkai Star Rail character, but I have no idea which one next. May go with a character that I actually have. I really wanted Boot Hill, but that hasn't happened. But anyways, here is the time-lapse replay, and I hope everybody has enjoyed this video. And like I said, any recommendations in the future, just let me know. And until next time, bye-bye!